chakshurunmilitam jena tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Guru Gaurgandharva Govinda Glinganaisya Vande Prasadato Yesham Sarvaramba Shipankara. So we're continuing with Shri Prapanna-jivanamrtam and the 9th chapter, Words of Nectar from the Supreme Lord. And we have reached verse 40. Prabala Bhakti Eva Bhagavad Vashikalan Samartha Nahi Yoga Yana Dayaha. Only intense devotion can subjugate the Supreme Lord. Meditation, knowledge, etc. cannot. Na sadayati mam yogo na sankyam dharma udava na swadhyayastapastyago yatha bhaktir mamorjita. O Uddhava, this is Krishna speaking to Uddhava, and I think this is in Bhagavatam. O Uddhava, pursuits such as 8-step yoga, knowledge of oneself as one with Brahman, Brahminical religiosity and Vedic study, all kinds of austerity, selflessness and asceticism, none of these can bind me as intense devotion does. Krishna Bhakti Shvapakan Api Janma Doshat Punati. Krishna Bhakti delivers even barbarous outcasts from the contamination of their low birth. Bhaktyaham ekaya graya. Shadayatma priyasatam. Bhakti punati mam nishta. Bhakti punati man nishta. Shvapakan api sambhavat. I, who am dear to the sadhus, can be reached only by devotion, born of unalloyed faith. And this line is a well-known line. Our gurus quote many times. Bhaktyaham ekaya graya. Krishna saying, I can only be attained through devotion, through bhakti. It is the only way. I, who am dear to the sadhus, can be reached only by devotion, born of unalloyed faith. Even a dog-flesh-eating outcast who dedicates himself to exclusive devotion for me is delivered from the influence of the wretched circumstances of his birth. Prabala Bhakti Ajitendriyan Api Vishaya Bhogad Udarati. Intense devotion delivers even persons of uncontrolled senses from worldly enjoyment. Bhadyamanopi madbhakto vishayer ajitendriya praya pragalbaya bhaktya vishayer nabibhuyate. A person adopting the path of devotion may suffer the obstacle of his mind loitering somewhat in thoughts of mundanity due to former habits of sensual dalliance. As he cultivates devotion, his service aptitude develops. And the more his boldness to serve increases, the more that materialistic devotee is gradually able to curb his attraction for the mundane. The only cause of failure for such aspirants is their lack of sincerity. That's very nice. A person adopting the path of devotion may suffer the obstacle of his mind loitering somewhat in thoughts of mundanity due to former habits of sensual dalliance. As he cultivates devotion, his service aptitude develops, and the more his boldness to serve increases, the more that materialistic devotee is gradually able to curb his attraction for the mundane. The only cause of failure for such aspirants is their lack of sincerity. It's interesting, this the wording here, the boldness to serve, and it's also in the Sanskrit, this word pragalbaya. It means that, like this type of audacity, boldness. Bhaktya, the boldness of his devotion, his desire to serve. It's interesting because you normally don't think of it in that way. But it is actually the more developed type of devotion. It is a type of assertion. You know, normally in spiritual culture we'll think of assertion as an undesirable thing. You know, because it's in relation to our false ego. But when it comes to the development of our proper ego, then that is a healthy assertion. When with the ego that I am a servant, with the ego that I am a dedicating agent, then there is a type of assertion there. And that's a very happy, very healthy, very wonderful thing. And it can be seen as an arrogance, but it's not. It's coming from that mood of servitude, actually. But it can be bewildering. This is what we want, that in all times, places, and circumstances we have that type of ego. That, I exist to serve. Hari, Guru, and Vaishnava. And sometimes that may appear to be something that may be expressed in an apparently very humble way, and other times it may be expressed in apparently a very arrogant way. But it's actually all the same thing. It's all an expression of deep humility. There's one, Gurudev and Srila Sridhar Maharaj also, they mentioned this story. There was a translation of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that was being done in our mat. It was under the guidance of Srila Sridhar Maharaj. But the actual work of word by word translation was being done by one of his godbrothers. What was his name? Ram Gopal Vijay Bhushan, I think. He was a very scholarly, educated Vaishnava, and he was doing this translation. But then checking with Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and he was correcting. And then there's one point there where it describes the mood of one servitor who is asserting themselves in this way that we've been mentioning, and like in an apparently an aggressive, or in an aggressive way, not apparently, but in an aggressive way, saying something like giving orders. Oh, yeah, something like, yeah, I don't care about Baladev. I don't care about Satyabhama. Baladev is Krishna's brother, Krishna's first expansion. Satyabhama is one of Krishna's principal queens in Dwarka. But this particular servitor in this place is recorded as saying, I don't care for them. And something like some rudeness there, And so this devotee came to this point in the translation and was very puzzled, went to Srila Sridhar Maharaj, how can a real devotee make some expression like this? And Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he gave an example that, or maybe this was Gurudev's example, but the example, we heard this from Gurudev definitely, that the way Srila Sridhar Maharaj explained it was like this, that if a table is dirty and your master goes to clean that, then what will you do? A real servant will say, hey, sit down. That's my job. I'm going to clean the table. That's my duty. You sit down. I'll worship you. So there may be some aggression there, Bossing, yeah. And we see that in the mood of Vatsalya Ras in Vrindavan, those who have the relationship have the position of being a superior to Krishna. That's because they have so much love for Krishna that they need to be able to take care of him. It's a very intense expression of love, that you're telling somebody what to do, actually. That you need me. No. I'm so bound to you. I'm so devoted to your welfare that I have the audacity to tell you what to do. No, I'm ready to die for you, but I'm also going to order you around. It's a very intense type of dedication. If you think of how mothers especially care for their children, they'll die for their kids. They're ready to do anything, but they're also ordering them and telling them what to do. They're actually at the service. They're like slaves of their child, But it's a very particular expression of love. So it's a type of assertion, this this identification that I'm a servant, it's not necessarily passive. No, and it's a type of boldness, especially if you're in an environment which is, apparently contrary to that spirit or contrary to that expression, to have the boldness to be able to assert that this is my identity. I'm not just going to go along with the status quo, but I know who and what I am, and I'm going to assert that no matter what the circumstances are. So it is a type of boldness. Otherwise, and this is actually a point, it's a danger because, there's one level of instruction, everything's favorable, we should adjust to the environment. This is one level of understanding which is correct. We shouldn't make any resistance to the environment. This is one level of understanding, but that has times when it's appropriate to apply and times when it's not appropriate to apply. And a higher level of realization is that I need to align myself with the higher will at all times, with Krishna's will, with that direct flow of Krishna's will. And in my alignment with that, I may have to resist the environment. There may be something anti to the culture of devotion. And I'm not just going to go along with that. Something anti to Krishna's interest, anti to my real spiritual interest, then I'm not just going to passively go along. I have to make some assertion. I have to resist. So it is a danger. I mean, I see that, that this thing gets taken out of context. Every wave is favorable. If it's something coming to disturb us personally or disturbing our ego, our egocentric existence, that we will tolerate. But if something is anti to the higher flow, to the will of Guru Gauranga, then that is a different thing. Then it may be necessary, according to our position and capacity, to make some assertion and resistance upon the environment. So this is a very beautiful expression, boldness to serve. And Gurudev really had that mood. He was very happily in that mood and position of being a servitor, Gurudev had the devotees add to his title. His given title was the President Acharya of Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Math, but Gurudev had added their President Sevite. Sevite means a servitor. So Gurudev had that added to his title. He's the President Sevite. It was so firm in his identity, He really didn't think of himself in any other way. He was just a servant of his Guru Maharaj. I was hearing one talk recently. He was discussing this and saying how I'm always thinking of myself with my Guru Maharaj, with my Guru uncles like Swami Maharaj Prabhupada, and I know I'm a boy to them. I'm their boy. It doesn't matter how old I am now, but I will always be their boy. So that's how I think of myself. and he really didn't. He didn't accept anything for himself. Whatever came to him, he offered that up. And I've told this story many times. I don't know if I told you already, but one moment that really highlighted this nature that I always remember it was the festival day of Guru Purnima, and we were in Calcutta, and it's a traditional day. I think it's a very widespread festival day amongst Hindus in general, but for each it will have some more particular significance. So it's the appearance day of Vyasadeva too. So Guru is seen as the representative of Vyasadeva, and so all gurus would be worshipped on this day. So it was one of the few days when Gurudev would, in those later years when his health wasn't so good, it was one of the few days when he would personally come and participate in the festival in the temple room. And so it was this curious situation because all of the devotees present, wanted to worship Gurudev, right? Seeing Gurudev as his guru. But Gurudev was thinking, oh, this is the day for me to worship my guru. And so he had a big seat, a Vyasa-san set up with a large picture of Srila Sridhar Maharaj. So Gurudev's idea is this is a day for him to worship his guru. But all of us are thinking this is a day for us to worship our guru. And so it's okay, this can coexist. But then there was a clash in this when they wanted to do Guru Puja. And they had all the paraphernalia and they were going to Gurudev to worship him. And Gurudev very fiercely and angrily rejected it, and he thrust his arm to the picture of Guru Maharaj, his guru. You worship him, I'm not accepting anything for myself. No, it was like fire, and it just really brought it home to me, like that immediate reaction. That's not something you put on. That's not something you can act out. Like that type of instinctive type of it was like that, this instinctive response, like he was angry. I don't want to accept any worship for myself.
It's kind of corruptive in a way, and he's defending himself. You can see it as somebody trying to put a bag over his head, and he's just, get that bag away. Don't try to put a bag over my head. Because it's sort of it seems like they're being nice, but actually from that higher thing, it's you're offering me this poisoned apple.
Right. That's a good point. And Gurudev has also spoken about that. He said once, someone was praising him and he said, "You're not my friend." Said, "You're not my friend. You're throwing me into an ocean of ego. You're not my real friend."
Yeah, with good intentions, of course.
Yeah, of course, yeah. but in that particular moment, I felt more his mood was that he wanted to express his devotion for his guru. I felt in that moment it was more about, he was saying, offer this worship to my Guru Maharaj. His picture was there. So in that moment, I feel it was more about that. Yeah, it was extraordinary.
Do you think because he's just sort of he's more worthy? Why not him? Why not him? Why not?
Because the natural feeling of a real Vaishnava, a real devotee, is that they want all worship to go to their guru. Because this day was the day of Guru Purnima. It's a day when you worship your guru.
Yeah.
So Gurudev wanted to worship his guru. And when you're in that mode of consciousness, I want to worship my guru, the idea of receiving worship yourself, that is a horrible thing.
Yeah, sure.
So it was like that. And there were other occasions when he would accept worship. But it was just at that moment he was asserting that particular mood, and he couldn't tolerate anything for himself at that moment. I mean, it's an ironic thing, those who really don't want worship, it's painful to receive. They are worthy of the most worship, and they will receive the most. There's a comment like that in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that the nature of fame is to chase after those who don't want it. But when you want worship, when you want fame, when you want position, that means you're not really worthy of that.
Yeah. If you love it.
Yeah.
Like Napoleon, someone.
We can find many examples in this world.
It's interesting. Yeah. That's the lineage. Do you think he's the idea of lineage? That once somebody's gone into the lineage, then they're more identified with the divine?
Oh, It's nothing to do with lineage.
Yeah.
It's about real spiritual quality.
Yeah.
I mean, if you mean like in terms of a formal lineage, no, it's not about that.
Mm.
You know, it's about real.
When it passed up into the line, you know, like they've become really identified with it.
I mean, it can be different for different individuals, but I mean, at least in the case of our Gurudev and our Param Gurudev, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, we consider them to be Nitya Siddha, which means that it's not that they went through some, you know, spiritual development, but that they are Nitya Siddha, meaning eternally perfect. It's not that they had to go through sadhana and became perfected. They're sadhana Siddha, those who become perfected through their practice, and Nitya Siddha, those who never, you know, have eternally been living in the service world, and they've only come to this world out of some service because they've been delegated that duty. Take care of this and help the people of this world. So in the case of our, of course, in other cases, what you described that may be appropriate. Relevant, but at least in the case of our Gurudev and Srila Sridhar Maharaj and also Swami Maharaj Prabhupada, we consider them to be of that caliber of a Vaishnava, that they descended. They've always been perfect. And they've descended to this world to help the souls of this world. Yeah. And they may show that, they're learning this, they may show that some ignorance, but that is that is a show, that is like it's showing some development, showing some progression, is what we will call lila, divine play, for some instruction to the people. Like in the case of the relationship between Gurudev and Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and like in hearing about how Srila Sridhar Maharaj instructed Gurudev, that gives us so much, How Srila Swami Maharaj Prabhupada instructed the people, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, like in their line of development, through that, manifestation in the world, we all learn from that. But it doesn't mean that they're actually in that position of ignorance.
So they didn't, it's like that bodhisattva kind of vow, like, they didn't have to come back, but I'm going to come back.
That's it, yeah. I don't know about the I don't know what the bodhisattva is, but that's it, yeah. They don't have to come back, but out of, could be their own desire, or it may have been Krishna's direct, request, please go and help the people. So yeah, that's exactly it. Not that they're actually bound by the laws of material nature. They may show that, but we can understand, because of the degree of their realization, Srila Sridhar Maharaj commented about Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who's given us so many, he wrote over 100 books, He wrote purports on Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. I mean, he not only that, but he did it in multiple languages, English and Sanskrit and Hindi, Bengali, Persian, like this scope, to that degree. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and presenting, knowledge that could be understood by persons of all walks of life. Books presenting in such a way that the Indian-minded person could appreciate, presented in such a way that the Western-minded person could appreciate. Like that, he gave that much, and such a high level of realization also. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj commented, like that, what he gave, and his level of spiritual quality, it's not something that you can just develop, within a couple lifetimes. We have to understand he's coming from this, because he's descended from that higher realm. It's not that it's someone of this world, like I'm a conditioned soul and I become purified, and then overnight I'm going to be able to give like such a vast ocean of wealth. It's not going to work like that, So someone of such a high level of attainment, realization, that means that's descended from the higher realm. That's his eternal, his eternal quality, his eternal wealth. So, we don't know, that has not been revealed to us, what is their position in that eternal world. But we can understand, according to the degree of their realization, it's not that they, developed to that in this lifetime, but they descended with that.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, it's different. They hold a different.
Yeah.
See, they're not avatar, but they're not. They're just. I guess it's whatever you want to call it. They're in that other. Not sort of karmically bound like as I am. Where I've got this. I'm impelled back into this life in a sense. I mean, it's a great gift. I'm given the gift of this life to progress, but I don't know how they would describe it. It's no words. But yeah, you really need to go back. Yeah, you've got some work you can really do there on yourself, kind of thing. But they're not coming back for that. They're coming back to help me do my
exactly.
work.
They're coming to help
so
us.
So it's a really different position.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
true teacher kind of thing.
Yeah.
I guess. A real true teacher.
Exactly.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, yeah, that's why they're just so amazing. All those total saint kind of people. They're just other.
Messiahs.
Yeah.
What you might call it. Real Messiah. Okay, so now these verses that we've come to, these are very special, very, very, very encouraging verses, and they were quoted many times by Srila Gurudev and Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and they describe the process that the practitioner goes through, the struggles that they face, and how the Lord's mercy, eventually comes to their aid. And they're very, very hopeful verses, because they describe, what any sincere practitioner will go through on the path, being forced to confront, so many lower tendencies. And Gurudev, I remember one day when he was talking about these verses in Navadvip, and Gurudev, when he would, I was thinking about this the other day, like, Gurudev cared so deeply about the individual progress of every practitioner, and it would be there might be a devotee in particular would be playing on his mind and for some period, and he'd be thinking how can I help this person with this particular spiritual challenge that they're facing, and not just one person, many persons, and in all, he was really, Jagat Guru, universal Guru, world Guru. He had that capacity to reciprocate with such a wide number of persons, and in such an intimate way, with such deep understanding of where they're coming from, what type of language can I speak to them in. I don't mean, verbal language, but, the mood, the approach, what are their particular issues? How can I help them to overcome that? With Navasundar Prabhu, we were discussing this. But a few times I observed when he came to give some talk, it was like either he just stated it explicitly, or it was clear from the way he presented it that he'd been wanting to give this talk for some time, like the points he was going to address, and he'd been meditating on it and thinking about what is the proper way, you know. There was one time in Calcutta where he just said that I've been thinking about this for 3 days, you know, and in the he was like preparing even, like the devotees on the veranda, his servitors, they said like he was looking up. It was this concept of revolution and evolution, and he was like asking them to look this up in the dictionary, like he really wanted to deeply understand the concept, and then so this time in Navadvip, once when he came to discuss these verses, he was saying, and there was another time he was talking about envy, how important it is to be free from envy, and that the way he presented that also, it seemed clear to me he'd been deeply meditating on it. And he like developed the talk in a very particular way and came to that point. But then on another occasion with these verses, he was making this point, like we shouldn't be hopeless, and I want that everyone will take strength, will have faith in the Lord's mercy, like along those lines, that we won't be hopeless, we won't be discouraged by our material tendencies, but we will be hopeful, you know, and take strength. And the Lord's mercy is always there. It's just that we need to be conscious of it and to, you know, call out for it, to say that we want it. and then he was discussing these verses. So we can go through those now. And before we get to the verses, Srila Sridhar Maharaj has written this, and might be the longest illumination that he's given to any of these verses. This is also very beautiful. And this, in one of our old kirtan guides, I think you have that yellow one, right? I think it was in that one. At least in one of them, Madhusudana Maharaj had this like as a poster kind of in the book. You'll see it there. And just with this, Srila Sridhar Maharaj's illumination on the verses, because it's so, that in itself is so beautiful and it says everything. So we'll hear that. Labdha Shuddha Bhakti Vijasya Nirvinasyanubhuta Dukatmaka Kama Sarupasyapi Tyaga Samartya Garhana Shilasya Tatara Nishkapata Nishtapurvaka Yajita Bhaktyangasya Bhaktasya Shaner Bhagavan Hridayodita Sannikila Vidya Tat Karyani Cha Vidvam Sayam Yidava China Nija Chinmaya Vilas Damai Va Vishkaroti. For one who receives the seed of devotion, who is selfless and penitent, denouncing his inability to abandon mundane enjoyment, despite realizing it to be the embodiment of suffering, and who sincerely gives themselves incessantly to all the practices of devotion, in the heart of such a devotee, the Supreme Lord ascends like the rising sun to annihilate all ignorance with its reactions, revealing his divine personality in all its pristine glory. I'll read that one more time. For one who receives the seed of devotion, who is selfless and penitent, denouncing his inability to abandon mundane enjoyment, despite realizing it to be the embodiment of suffering, and who sincerely gives himself incessantly to all the practices of devotion, in the heart of such a devotee, the Supreme Lord ascends like the rising sun to annihilate all ignorance with its reactions, revealing his divine personality in all its pristine glory. And these are the verses, these are 4 verses from Srimad Bhagavatam. Jato shada matkatasu nirvina sarva karmasu veda dukat makankaman parityage pyanishara tato bhajita mamprita shraddha juda nishchaya dushamanascha tankaman dukodarkam stragarhayam proktena bhakti yogena bhajato masa krinmune kama hridaya nashyanti sarve mai hridistate vidyate hridaya grantish chidyante sarva samshaya chiyante chasya karmani mayijishte kilakmani. And this is the translation. He who has imbibed heart's faith in the tidings of my name, nature and pastimes, who has become indifferent to all kinds of fruitive work and its rewards, who has learned that all forms of enjoyment of sensual passions ultimately transform into misery, yet is unable to fully abandon such passions, such a faithful devotee, being determined that his shortcomings will be dispelled by the potency of devotion, gradually comes to abhor those evil passions that enslave him, knowing the havoc they wreak, and he serves me with love. When his objective is pure and sincere, I give him my mercy. In this way, the introspective devotee unceasingly absorbs himself in all the practices of devotional service, as enunciated by me, and I, who am situated in the heart of my devotee, strike at the root of all the material urges that infect his heart, reducing them to oblivion. By bringing me, the soul of all souls, into his heart, no evil can remain there. Swiftly is the hard knot of mundane ego severed, all doubts are slashed, and all mundane action is exhausted for that earnestly aspiring devotee. So this is a very peculiar situation for the soul to be in, that, since we were discussing this on Sunday, that, since time immemorial, we've been buying into and feeding into these, egoistic tendencies that we have. And now we're at the point of realizing that this isn't actually who I am. This isn't actually healthy. This isn't actually helpful. There's a higher prospect of life. There's a higher identity that is mine. And so now I'm trying to move this way. But we've already signed many contracts. We've already made many agreements. And so we cannot immediately become free from these tendencies, these desires, these attachments. So, jata sraddha, this is the Lord himself speaking. Jata sraddha matkatasu, one who has developed faith and talks of me, and nirvina sarva karmashu, that they have, this word nirvina, I see it has some range of meaning. I've seen it rendered as something more passive, like disinterested. I've also seen it rendered as disgusted. But in relation to sarva karmasu, all worldly activity. So, we can say, they've become disinterested, or they're just or they're totally disgusted, with the whole world of material enjoyment. But at this end, Veda dukatma kankama means that they know it's the abode of suffering. They know it's not real happiness. But parityage pyanisha, they're not able to give it up. They're bound, like just as a very obvious example, someone with a serious addiction. They know this isn't helping them. They know this is killing them, but they can't stop. They're smoking the cigarette, reading the diagnosis of their lung cancer. They know this is really bad, and they know this isn't real happiness. They know this is taking them to an early grave, but They can't control themselves. They can't help themselves. So in the same way, we have all of these, whether gross or more subtle, we all have these unhealthy tendencies, attachments, and we've reached a point of development of being able to realize this isn't good, but at the same time, we can't stop.
So it's the quality of the relationship, in a sense. It's not just that it's with the world.
You have to go now.
Okay, Lisa, really love you to have you with us. Have a good day.
See you next week.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a mundane quality to the relationship. It's an attachment. So that relationship with that.
Sorry, which relationship?
With say worldly things.
Yeah.
It's infected by this. I don't know. It's at a lower level, I guess. You're attached. Whereas you could have a higher relationship with things.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
No,
you're 100% right.
Yeah,
That's a higher level of realization.
Yeah.
To not have, that's one level.
I
want to avoid all of that. But a higher level is being able to properly engage everything, to properly see everything in connection with the Lord. The problem is that we're seeing it in connection with our own interest and our own existence. And so one side of the coin is exploiting that for me, and the other side of the coin is rejecting that because it causes trouble. But then the proper adjustment is to see it in connection with Krishna's interest. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're right. This is, this is a particular, reaction here.
Sure.
But yes, once one is in a safe position, they're free from that whole rag and dvesh, attraction and aversion, then they will see it in that higher way, all connected with the Lord's interest. Everything is paraphernalia for the service of the Lord. Yeah. Anashaktasya vishayan yatarham upayunjata nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yukta vairagya uchate. This verse of Rupa Goswami Srila Saraswati Thakur emphasized a lot. That this is real detachment. This is real renunciation. To be personally detached and to see and to utilize everything in connection with the Lord's interest, to see everything in its relationship with the Lord. So yes, very good point. Okay, so then the next verse here. So then what, this type of practitioner, what's the remedy? What should they do? Tato bhajeta mamprita sraddha lord juda nishchaya jushamanas chatankaman dukkha darkams chagarhayam. That such a devotee, they will remain sraddha lord means very faithful. Drida nishchaya, with firm conviction. Prita means love. They will worship, serve me with love, with this deep faith and firm conviction. Jushamanas chatankaman. From time to time, they will fall prey to these material attachments. They will come under the influence of these material attachments. And Gurudev, he gave the example of the old system of punishment that some kings would have of dunking. You dunk someone underwater for some time, then bring them up for air, then you dunk them under again. So in the same way, we become overwhelmed and controlled, submerged by our material desires. And then we'll come up for air, we'll get some relief from some clarity from those things. And dukkha darkam chagarhayam means that they will, they'll from time to time fall under the influence of these things, but they're not totally surrendering to that. They're not celebrating that. But within they are repenting. They are repenting that. And that repentance, that mood of prayer, that is what purifies them from that impurity. Proktena bhakti yogena bhajato masa krinmune. That then in such a devotee, they will, earnestly, constantly engage themselves in all the practices of bhakti which have been given by me. Those which have been given by me. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj discussing this point, he said, actually, what will happen is that those moments of failure, they'll actually stimulate us to try harder. It makes you more determined. Oh, I fell down, and I'm gonna do better next time. I'm gonna try harder next time. That inspires it. It brings about this state of desperation. Realization of how much we need this. Brings about a deeper level of surrender, calling to the Lord for His grace. And so, we become more earnest, more intent in all of our practices. Those practices become an expression of our desire to really go further into this. And then finally, kam hridaya nashanti sarvamaya hridistite. Then all of their kam, their material desire that will be destroyed. Kam within the heart will be destroyed. Sarvamaya hridistite. I will become, fully, revealed there within their heart. Or they will see my connection in everything. And then this last verse is probably the most famous of these verses. Vidyate hridaya grantis, chidyante sarva samshayaha, kshiyante cha shakarmani, mayi jushte kilatmani. Then this hridaya granti, very nice phrase, means the knot of the heart, the knot on the heart. Vidyate, that will be pierced. And Gurudev, he said that when Srila Sridhar Maharaj would say this verse, he was saying it with such potency that he felt the words entering his heart, breaking the knots of his heart, in his humility. Gurudev expressed that. Not just, lip deep words, but like that, specific potency. Chidyante sarva samshaya, all doubts will be slashed, or any, lack, any dissatisfaction. Kshiyante cha shakarmani, the whole, entanglement and karmic reaction, that will be cut. Mayi jushte kilatmani, and they will see me everywhere. They will be situated in me. I will be situated in them. So really, these verses are such a beautiful meditation. I think it's a good place to stop for today. Okay. So, we have to have faith in this process. There is light at the end of the tunnel. We simply have to turn our face towards the Lord and His devotees and pray for their mercy, the revelation of their mercy. Jai Shri Shri Prapanna-jivanamrtam. Jai Shri Bhakti Rakshak Shri Hadev Goswami Maharaj. Jai Shri Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj. Jai Shri Shri Guru Ranga Gandharva Govinda Sundar Ki. Jai all the assembled devotees ki. Jai all the world devotees ki. Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan. Jai Gaur Premanande.